Esme, she's a queen. This is dedicated to all my beautiful queens, all my beautiful ladies out there. She's a queen. Go queen. You got it, girl. She's a queen. You better represent. Go queen. Go queen. Go. She's a queen about her business. Queen. Working hard on a mission. Yeah. Head high, purpose driven. Purpose driven. Represent, you're a queen, oh.
You are the creator of heaven and earth, you are God alone. Say you reign, Almighty. Yes, Lord, you reign. In our hearts you reign, Lord. That's the reason why I sing. Say, you reign.
Of the Q Chat. I'm so excited. I have a great guest today. Her name is Miss Anisa Fowler, and she is an international singer and gospel powerhouse. We're going to talk about her new single and EP that's coming out and a bunch of other great things. And of course, my favorite topic, self-love. So how are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful, Shonda. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm so excited to talk with you. So, of course, you have this great new EP that's out, and there's a bunch of other things I want to talk to you about. But first, I want to go back to your roots and just get some information on how long have you been singing, and have you always had the aspiration to be a professional gospel singer?
I've been singing, I want to say, for as long as I could talk. I tell this story all the time. It's like my mom's point of view, because I don't actually recall it. But I grew up in Trinidad, and she would say when she came to pick me up from school, and this is like 5 years old, 4 years old, that I would have all the kids on the school stoops teaching them the Sunday school songs. And she's like, come on, let's go. Sunday school's over. So I feel like, I've been doing this for a long time, singing and teaching. I love music. I love worship, especially. So I've been inclined to gospel music for as long as I can remember, and always wanted to be a singer. I'm not sure that I always wanted to be a soloist, but I know for sure I always wanted to be a singer. And as I got older and really started to tap into the gift that God had placed inside of me, I knew that eventually it was going to be a solo situation.
Okay. So how did you become like a professional singer as far as, getting signed to labels and things like that? How was that transition from always having that love in your heart and the talent to actually, really putting it out there and making albums and things of that nature?
It took some time, because my first real serious interaction with music was through the violin. I started playing the violin at a pretty young age, around 11, 12 or so. And by the time I was ready to graduate junior high school, I was the first violinist in the orchestra at the school. And the choral director at the time wanted everyone in the grade to be a part of the graduation song. So I'm like, oh my God, why do I have to sing? I play the violin. I don't want to do this. And so I joined the choir just to do that. And she had me sing a solo. And I'm just like, oh my God. But when the solo was done, it was like, Anisa, what is this you have inside of you? So I feel like, I was always singing and like being a part of choirs and the church and all that, but I was really more inclined to the violin. And then when it came time for me to go to high school, I had two choices: LaGuardia High School and Bayside High School. And one accepted me for violin and rejected me for voice. And the other one accepted me for voice and rejected me for violin. And I was like, oh my goodness. And something, I don't know, I guess I would have to say just God, maybe my own intuition, said go with the voice thing. And I never put it down since. So I was really studying voice for a
Okay.
long time, high school into college. I did jazz vocal music, music education, all of that. And I joined a bunch of groups. I was singing background for a lot of people here in New York. And it was just, that's what I was doing. And eventually I decided to work on my own music. And in 2014, I dropped my first single, and that was called Your Love.
Wow.
Yeah.
What have you had any challenges being a contemporary gospel artist, or just being in the music industry in general? Have you faced any challenges or obstacles in your career?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, there's a lot of personal challenges. And, when we talk to all artists, I think, whether it's music or just anything at all, there are those personal things because there's so many people that do what you do, or
Yeah.
so you think.
Mhm.
There's so many people that are in that same genre, in that same niche, whatever it is. And there are a lot of personal challenges overcoming that spirit of competition, overcoming that spirit of inadequacy, feeling like I'm not good enough. There's so many people doing it better. So those challenges, I think, are greater than even some of the outside things where, people say, no, not this time. I auditioned for The Voice 9 times.
Oh, wow.
And 9 times they told me no. And I auditioned for America's Got Talent. I was on that like audition train. And so there are a lot of no's that I heard along the way, a lot of next time, you're not ready yet. And that messes with your mind, it messes with your confidence. But I think God has just kept me pushing, kept me going. And finally, I connected with Arnu Records. I know you mentioned that before. So yeah, I connected with Arnu Records, got signed as an indie artist, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question based off of what you just mentioned. Just no is a part of the journey. And like you said, it can mess with your confidence, in so many different industries, especially media, arts, talent. No's are just part of the game. And as you mentioned, it can mess with your confidence and, just tremble your spirit. So how were you able to handle the no's? And what would you tell someone else that's struggling maybe to handle the no's? It's like things just don't happen overnight, and a no is a part of it. So how did you overcome, the devastation or the hurt, that may come sometimes with those no's?
I think understanding, especially as a Christian, right? I know that there are lots of artists that are not necessarily connected to Christ, but for me, having my roots and foundation in Him, I kind of default to, okay, well, God, you're allowing this no to happen. And that means that this is just not where the assignment is. This is just not where I'm supposed to be in this moment. It doesn't change the fact that I'm disappointed, even, like to the point of crying sometimes, or to the point of wanting to give up. But then I remind myself that God is the one that placed this gifting inside of me. And wherever He gives us vision, He also gives us provision. And it's important to kind of process those no's as, well, what do I still need to prepare? Where is the deficit? And sometimes there is no deficit, but that's just not the avenue that God wants you to go down. And I had to kind of just readjust, kind of say, okay, Anisa, maybe this is not where you need to be. You don't need to be auditioning every 5 seconds. Pause for a minute and let's start creating music. And that's exactly what happened for me.
Wow. And I'm just happy you mentioned that because, sometimes like, the no is a part of the journey. And sometimes, it's hard to accept sometimes. And I'm glad you also mentioned too, like acknowledging that, okay, I'm disappointed, but still find a way to work through it. Another thing that
something else? I'm so sorry. Something else in terms of that no, I think it's also important. Perspective is everything.
Yeah.
And when you hear no, sometimes we process it. The perspective we have is no equals never. And that's not what it is. No just means not now. No to this moment, no to this opportunity. But you never want to shut down to the point that the next opportunity can't meet you. There's something for you to learn in that no, so that when the next door opens, you're that much more prepared. And maybe that might be a no too. And that's okay. You keep pushing, you keep pressing, you keep believing, because the gift that's inside of you, God, his word says that it will make room for you. So you just got to keep going. You just got to keep pressing, and eventually the right door will open.
One thing I had to realize too, that a no is technically a yes. You know, like what's meant for me is meant for me. What's not meant for me, it's simply not meant for me. You know, so it's just something, and sometimes I'll even tell that to myself before I receive an answer. You know, like if it happens, it was meant to be. If it doesn't, it's not. You know, in order to not really internalize any type of disappointment. You know, because sometimes, like they said, that no was meant to be, because it's just really not for us. You know, certain things that we try to strive for, that we think is a part of, you know, our path, and it's really not. So sometimes those that we think, oh, why is this not working out for me? It's really working out in your favor, because it's you have to go in. So I just think sometimes, you know, you got to step back sometimes and you get that no and really process, like, was this really meant for me? You know, is this really a good thing? Or was I truly prepared for, you know, what I thought was supposed to happen right now? You know, so sometimes you really take time to think about that no. You know, there's power in those no's too, you know, so that's one thing to look at things as well.
Are you ready to join the new workforce solution? Currently, many people are working from home. Right now, during the pandemic and also the recession, many Americans are finding flexible ways to earn a living and support their family on their terms. Many name brand companies utilize customer service in order to thrive. Little did you know that a lot of those agents are sitting at home, just like you. Contact FlexPro today and learn more on how you can make money, earn a living, have flexibility, more time with your family on your own terms.
So that's one thing to look at things as well. So speaking of that, I read a lot about you, of course, and I read something that mentions you are not your mistakes, and how you would like to, and you've experienced some failures, and you want to encourage young and old to pick themselves back up and never give up or give in. So of course, we are kind of touching on that right now. So what have been some of, you know, like the failures that you've experienced, and as far as the lessons that you learned that has given you the tool to inspire others to never give up?
I have really come to accept that the steps that we take in our lives are not always going to be perfect. And there are times that there are circumstances that we don't control. And those you really cannot take to heart, because you cannot control what other people are doing. But in my case, and I think in a lot of people's cases, where we get tied up is because we did contribute to this particular fall or this mess up. So we internalize the guilt and the shame of it. And we begin to make those things, those missteps, those mishaps, we begin to make them identity characteristics for us. And that's where we go wrong. Because I slipped and fell doesn't mean that I'm identified by that particular moment or that season in my life. I'm identified by what God says that I am. And when we mess up, it's important that, yes, we address it, right? Yeah, I made this mistake. I made these bad steps. I turned and created this detour in my life. But I don't have to stay there. The final destination is still available as long as you are breathing, as long as you're alive. That means that you still have opportunity to go to your final destination. And so if we kind of start to talk differently to ourselves and say, you know what, not only do I need God to forgive me, but I need me to forgive me.
Right.
And when we forgive ourselves for making mistakes, we don't have to attach those mistakes to ourselves as if it's part of our name. No,
Mhm.
that's not what I'm called. That's what I did.
Right.
That's not who I am. That's what I experienced. That's not what I'm called to do. And so that has been one of the things that I really, really, I feel like I scream that every opportunity I get, because I know that there are people that are listening, especially in the church. You make mistakes and people make you feel like you are completely unusable because of that mistake. And that is so far from the truth. Every single person that God ever used in a mighty way was a total screw up.
Mm. Oh yeah, most
Total,
definitely.
total. And so if you stay in the space of the mess up, then God can't use you. That mess up, there's this Paul, he pretty much wrote most of the New Testament. And there's a point in one of the books where he talks about this thorn in his flesh, this thing that was somewhat of a hindrance in his walk with God. And he prayed 3 times. And eventually God was like, my grace is sufficient. We sometimes things happen in our lives, things are placed in our lives, we experience things, and it's really so that God's grace can be manifested in our lives. It's really so that we can stay humble and realize that if it wasn't for God and it wasn't for his mercies, that we wouldn't be anywhere. If we were perfect and then we also had talent, we would never give God the credit. We would walk into every room like, come on and praise me. But no, God wants us to praise him. And so sometimes we have to have those missteps so that we can keep ourselves humble and his grace can be manifested that the more.
Right, right. And that's it ties back to just like we mentioned about no's, even experiencing loss, at the time where we experience things that just don't work out, at the time you're devastated sometimes. Like, okay, why didn't this work out? But then I think in hindsight, when you look at it again, as I mentioned before, whatever is meant for you is meant for you. There is a divine purpose in everything. So those losses again are wins sometimes, when you really process it, because certain things, everything is a part of alignment is the way I look at things. And you have to make peace with your past, with things that we view as mistakes, losses, things that don't work out. Is just making peace in order to be healthy, and then to realize, okay, what lesson, was this meant for? Like, what was how is this loss or this pain meant for me? Even our pain is designed for us, and it takes maturity and and thought to realize that, like, wait, this pain was meant for me to experience in order for me to get to this level, or me to get to this peace, or me to get to this understanding. It's a lot of levels. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight, but a lot of our pains, our losses, our no's, it all definitely serves a purpose for sure. One thing that you did mention too was regarding the church. And one of the points that I got with all the information I definitely wanted to talk to you about, which segues a little bit off topic, but church hurt. And I know you mentioned too, just about sometimes when we make mistakes, we'll think that we're not able to be used. So what is your stance on church hurt? I think a lot of us who, we're in, that have been involved in church. I know not everyone has been, but people who have experienced, being a part of a church home or a church family, some of us may have experienced church hurt. Some has gotten so severe where people are straying away from church. So what's your opinion, I guess I would say, on church hurt and how to handle it? Because I think so many people handle it differently. Like some people, they church hop, or they may stick with their church and, have some forgiveness with it, or some just stray away altogether, and it's to each his own. But what's your opinion on church hurt?
There's a big topic of religion versus relationship. And I think that helps you process church hurt. When you are tied to religion, you are tied to people, you are tied to when you put people on pedestals, you're tied to titles, You're tied to expectations. There's so many things when the focus is religion, because there is this idea that if you have a particular title, then you should handle and you should do a particular thing. But the reality is, people are in churches. And just as we mess up, as those without these big titles, pastors mess up and leadership messes up. And when you have a relationship with God, when religion fails you, relationship will stand up. And it's so important that you open the word of God for yourself and know who he is for yourself. Because when people mess up in leadership, you cannot allow that to stop the relationship that you're cultivating with Christ himself. And so for me, I learned really, really young, really, really early, that the mishandling of leadership and the church in general, how they mishandled my mistakes, has nothing to do with the Christ that forgave me for my mistakes. And so I lean into him, and leaning into him helps me forgive, because I have to forgive if I'm going to operate in ministry. A lot of the hurt that I received has to do with how I was handled. I had a baby out of wedlock, and that's huge. It's still huge now. And I was the choir director, youth choir director. Our choir was probably 60, 70 young people deep. We were doing McDonald's Gospel Fest. We were, when you talk about slay, we were slaying. Every Sunday, doing all sorts of things. We were all over New York, and even outside of New York for events and all that. People knew who we were, especially within our particular organization. And so for the big time choir director to end up in this situation, it's like, oh my God, the ultimate sin. I was stripped of everything. I was assigned a seat. I was spoken of from the pulpit, and it was tough. It was tough. And I stayed in that church for several years after experiencing that. It took me about 3.5 years to get back into ministry. And I had to confront leadership and say, this is what you said to me. And this is how it impacted me. And this is why I couldn't just jump back into it. And, there's some aspects of that you have to give grace, because leadership doesn't always say, I'm sorry. They don't. There's something about the pride in the title and the pride in the human, that makes you say, well, I did what I felt like I needed to do. And, that this particular action had to be taken. But I really had to just forgive and say, at the end of the day, this man or this group of people, they don't get to hold my assignment hostage. And I had to release them. I had to release the pain. And I really oh my goodness, I feel like any young girl that I see in that situation, it's like, pick me. I'll be her mentor. I'll watch over her. I'll cover her. I'll pray with her. I'll sit with her. Because no one sat with me. No one did it. And so I really had to, and I had to go through that so that I can gain some strength, and that I can understand grace, and I can understand forgiveness in a different way. And I think it really did. I didn't have to go through that, right? I don't want to promote sin. I didn't have to go through that. But the fact that I did spoke to the humanity in me, spoke to the weaknesses in me, and did not speak in any way, shape, fashion, or form to the gift and to the fact that God had an assignment and a call on my life. And that was just something that the enemy could have used to derail me and to completely destroy me. But because of relationship, I didn't let religion do that to me.
Wow, that is so powerful. That is really
Find your peace. The holiday season is here. Get excited. During the holiday season, we often stress ourselves out, become depleted, and forget about our health and well being, all in the name of giving. To ensure that you maintain your self care routine and stay connected to who you are during the holidays, here are 3 ways to maintain your self love practice. Step 1. Meditate in the car while on your way to purchase gifts for loved ones by being mindful of your thoughts and emotions. Step 2. Practice gratitude after purchasing a gift by being grateful for having the resources to purchase the gift and showing gratitude that you have the ability to bring a smile to the face of the receiver of your gift. Step 3. Affirm yourself. Take the time out to state self-love affirmations such as, I am loved. I am worthy of the same love I give to others. Or, I surround myself with those I love and those who love me. Did you know that one of the best compliments to receive from someone is, I love your energy? If you want to exude a loving and nurturing energy and feel good throughout the holiday season, gift yourself or a loved one with a self-love guide sponsored by Community Yoga. Self-love is the best love. You must love yourself first before you can love anyone else. Purchase your self-love guide today.
It's so powerful. That is really something else. So I want to talk about your new EP, which of course is called Anisa, the Next Chapter. So
Yes.
you have experienced a lot, and I know that you're a female minister of excellence. And from what you just said, your ministry seems like it also serves and caters to young women, So, wow. So tell us about this new chapter, the next chapter, and also with your music, how do you incorporate, like you said, the experiences that you've had and how not only have you gone through this, but like you said, you can be a mentor to others just by example and experience. So how does all that tie together?
So, I feel like I was thinking about, God, what do I call this EP? What's the name that I'm supposed to give to it? And I had been in a very, I want to say toxic. Toxic is a maybe too strong of a word, but I'm going to use that word toxic. I was in a really toxic relationship, back and forth, got married, eventually divorced, trying to rekindle the relationship and doing all of that. And I feel like I insisted on being on that particular page of my life.
Yeah.
And there was a huge shift where that individual said, they just, all of a sudden, it was so like, oh my God, they got married. And it was like, what?
Yeah.
God, how? What do you mean? I'm here praying and waiting and hoping and believing, and they got married. And I felt in that moment, God was like, it's time to turn the page. There is a next, there is a new, there is a better, there is a greater chapter. And you have been stuck on this page. And I think that there's so many people that are stuck on a particular page because you feel like, it's the right thing. I have 3 children with this person. God doesn't like divorce. I should try to make this work. It's the right thing to do. And I'm stuck on this page. Maybe you're going through something and you're stuck in a business plan. You're stuck in a business deal. You're stuck in a particular location or stuck somewhere. And you're thinking, it's good. It's right. So I have to stay here. But things are not working out. And God had to do something crazy and said, listen, turn the page. And that's what this next chapter is about. It's about me saying, God, you reign over everything that I'm doing, everything that I've been through, everything that I'm about to go through. You are in charge of my life. You have me covered. Everything that I've read in your word, you did it before. You can do it again. These are all the titles of my songs on the EP. There's nobody like you. I don't have to feel like I'm defined by being a wife or defined by failure. I'm defined by who you say that I am. And I have just, it's been an awakening kind of a thing for me. And I really pray that when people listen to these songs, that they find that awakening moment for them as well. And turn the page. It's time for another chapter, a better chapter, your next chapter.
Wow. It's so crazy that we're both doing our natural hair and the glasses. And I swear I've experienced the exact same thing that
Yeah.
you through, you know, being in a toxic situation, having 3 children, thinking, oh, like this is supposed to be, you know, a particular way and going back and forth. So yeah, that's definitely a journey. It's just such a coincidence that you did mention that. And I definitely love, like I said, I listened to He Reigns today and I was just like, yes, you know, I just love it. And I just felt it. And I did listen to some of your other singles as well. And I just feel like we need those reminders, you know, no matter what your spiritual background may be, you know, it's all love, you know, and just a reminder to ourselves to love ourselves and also to forgive ourselves. You
Yes.
know, forgiveness has a lot of different chapters. You know, like we talked a lot about forgiving others, but I don't think the conversation is loud enough regarding forgiving ourselves, because I think a lot of us hold on to so much guilt just over life. We'll be
Yes.
guilty of a relationship that we shouldn't have been in the first place that didn't
Right.
work out. And as women, we'll hold on to that. And it's like,
Yes.
we're free, you know, but we just hold on to so much instead of forgiving ourselves. Like there's no perfection, you know, in this world, but we'll just hold on to so much and internalize it. So I just think, you know, we would just talk more about forgiving ourselves, you know, and having that peace, we would all be in a better place. So speaking of next chapter and what you mentioned, I do want to ask you about self-love. I do feel like self-love is just the ultimate way that we can acknowledge like, hey, we deserve better, or just to just let go sometimes. As I mentioned, forgiving ourselves just simply for living and things that we may view as a mistake and hold on to it and feel guilty. So just with everything that you mentioned, how do you define self-love? And how has self-love played a role in your life? I mean, obviously, you have come to a lot of awakenings, you know, to get to that next chapter. So
Yes.
what role has self-love played in your life to get to that next chapter?
You know, there's aspects of it that are very, very natural, like rest.
Mm.
If you love yourself, you need to take a nap. You
Yeah.
need to stop. You need to pause. You need to allow your body to recoup. You need to allow that internal healing to happen. Sometimes, I mean, we're going through so much and we just stay up thinking about it, dwelling on it, processing what we should have said and how we could. It's over. Please go to sleep. So that's one thing. I'm telling you, I'm still working on this rest thing, but rest is critical. If our Heavenly Father rested, and He is the greatest example, He created all of the universe and then called everything wonderful and great and said, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna rest. And that is the ultimate example for us. And we really do need to take rest. We also need to be careful of how we speak. Life and death is in the power of your tongue, your own tongue. It's really not what other people are saying to us. It's what we are saying to ourselves that kind of create these walls and restrictions and obstacles, because we keep telling ourselves we're not good enough. We're watching all of social media, which is just like everyone's best, most perfect moments. And then we hold ourselves up to this crazy standard. I think about once I started really becoming active on social media is when I was like, this is just foolishness. Because before you post a picture, like how many times do you take the picture and then swipe through 57 different angles of you doing the same pose to pick the most perfect one?
Right.
And that's what you put up. It's the one that didn't have your eyes blinking, that had your lip in the right perfect proportion, that had the sun looking at you the right way. And it took 57 shots for you to get that. And that's exactly what everybody else is doing. So we have to release ourselves from this superficial, unreal, kind of manipulated standard. It's not real. It's wonderful. We can enjoy it. It's entertainment. It's not reality.
Right.
And that's a huge, huge, huge part, especially today, for young people Not so, I think the older generation is kind of getting into it, but especially for us young people, we got to take breaks from that social media thing.
Yeah.
And while you're on it, really put it into perspective.
Right.
What you just saw is not real. You know? And so don't hold it up to be that standard, and really allow yourself, even I give myself a 2 recordings limit. I'm not going to sit there and record for an hour to post 30 seconds. No, I'm doing it twice. One out of these 2 is going up, and that's it. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it.
I agree with that. Like I've had this conversation with people, like just recently, someone I know, they were just kind of like, oh, well, you know, certain things I'm doing is not working out. And then I'll see something on social media and I interrupted them. I was like, you know, social media is not real, right? You know, just like it's literally a snapshot of 30 seconds into what someone wants you to think. So it means nothing. You know? So like you can't internalize what you see someone else posting on social media. And I just think that's the terrible side of social media, that people take it too seriously and they don't comprehend that it's fake. It's literally snapshots. A snapshot into a millisecond of someone's journey. I don't know what went behind that person. That person could be smiling and ready to be suicidal. I don't know.
Yes. That's the reality. You have to watch your mouth when you say, oh, I wish I could be this person.
Yes.
You have no idea what that person is going through. And I like to say that I'm really trying to be the best version of me. The only thing that I want to focus on in terms of comparison is Anisa yesterday. What did Anisa do yesterday that Anisa can do better today? I'm not looking at what anybody else is doing, not from the perspective of how do I do that too? No, you do what you do and you do it well. And I'm going to do what I do. And I'm going to go at the pace that I can go at. And I'm going to handle the assignment that God has given to me. And I'm going to be diligent over that. I can take little things and, you know, learn from what some other people are doing good, but I'm not going to let those things kind of define what I'm supposed to do, because that person's doing them and I've got to do me.
Yes. And that ties into just really loving yourself and knowing yourself. You know what I'm saying? Beyond loving yourself, know yourself. Because if you know yourself and you know what you're capable of, and you wouldn't have the time, I would feel, to work. It just kind of bothers me because I really honestly do not like social media. I only use it to post business stuff, but like I just don't like social media because, like you mentioned, people are looking at that and they're just taking it on another level. And we just conversations with people who have said they have felt bad about something they saw on social media. It's just like, what? That's like watching a cartoon and feeling bad. That's how I look at it, because like, it's not real.
Yes. And I think, you know, there are benefits to it. It is a great tool. But we just have to use it with the right perspective in mind. Yeah. We really have to, we can't be so after the likes and the followers and the subscribers that we forget that we have an assignment in real life.
Oh yeah.
That we have to live out, and that God is going to come back and say, hey, I gave you this talent. How did you multiply it? What did you do with this gift? I want interest on what I deposited into you. And that's really where our focus is. Use the tool, get your name out there, get your voice out there. I want everybody to follow me on social media. But I'm not waking up thinking, oh my God, I didn't get enough followers. Now that's it. I'm not great. No, I'm still great. Whether I got 1 follower or I got 1 million followers, God calls me great, I'm great.
That part, exactly. So I want to get back to Anisa, the next chapter. What's next? Are you going on a tour? Like, what can we expect with this new EP? What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, first off, for everybody that's listening, that's watching my EP, The Next Chapter, is available everywhere digital music is sold. I released it on July 15th. So wherever you get your music, type in Anisa, Anisa, The Next Chapter, and you'll be able to enjoy it. On October 7th, in New York, at my church, Mount Moriah AME Church, I'm going to be doing a live video recording, and I'm doing every single song that I did in the studio on that EP live. So I'm so excited about that. And you can go to my social media page, Anisa Worships. That's Instagram and Facebook, and also my website, anisafowler.com. And you'll see all the information, all the details, the location, address, time, everything for that concert on October 7th. And that's kind of kicking off my EP tour. Mm-hmm. Right after that, I'll be visiting a ton of churches and just ministering those particular songs and getting it out there, just sharing the Jesus of the song, sharing the testimony of the songs, and really inspiring, motivating, all that, everybody that give me the opportunity to be there with them.
Wow. Like I said, I love it. I love the energy. One last question. So sure. If you if you were telling somebody how to do like a playlist off of The Next Chapter, what would be, I'm going to ask you three quick questions. This just came off the top of my head. So okay. What would be the song off the album? You know how like sometimes like there would be like a song that just really gets you hyped up, you know, like for example, whenever I hear Lift Him Up, like Hezekiah Walker, I get like super hyped. So what would be the song off The Next Chapter, number one, the one that will hype you up, you know, and you just ready to really get some radical praise on? Number two, what would be the single when like you really need to just take some time, you know, you may be having a day and you just need something to give you a sense of peace? What would be that song? And the third single is, it may be like picking a favorite child, but what's the third? Number three would be, what song means the most to you? That may be a real rough one. So I'll start off with the first one. Which one out there is the one that like really, you know, get your praise on?
I think Love Lifted Me is going to be that get your praise on. It's got a little bit of African fuse with Michael Jackson, fuse with gospel. It's a super fun song. And it really is to remind you that God's love is the thing that will lift you out of anything. Tapping into that, because we fail each other all the time. But God's love is unconditional. And there is just nothing we can do to make him stop loving us. So that's a song that I think when you sing it, it gets you hyped. It gets you wanting to dance. It certainly gets you smiling. So if you need a pick-me-upper, it's Love Lifted Me. And then for the song that is, you're having a day, you're having a moment, I think Do It Again is that song. I intentionally put Do It Again on because I talk a lot through that song. I tell a lot I recap pretty briefly, but I recap some stories, the story of Lazarus, the story of Job, of Moses, of David. I felt like these were men in the Bible that went through some pretty traumatic experiences. Things that we all experience from day to day, or we have seasons of trauma in our lives. And God brought every single one of them through. And there's so many others, but I picked those four. So if you're going through something, listen to Do It Again, because we get to the place where we feel stuck and we feel like it's impossible to get out of it. But if God did it for Job, Job lost everything in one day. One day. None of us have lost everything in one day. So if God can bring him through that, he totally can bring you through whatever it is that you need to go through. The challenges of leading people, the challenges of being called to do something and you don't feel qualified. That was Moses. If God can qualify the unqualified, he can do it for Moses, he can do it for you. And so there's all of these kinds of hiccups that we go through in our life. And certainly if you're going through one of those, Do It Again is going to help you get through. And I have to say the song that means the most to me, and I didn't think it was going to mean the most to me, but it's Covered. And Covered, I released the song November of 2021. And in December is when I got the news of what had completely unraveled in my past relationship. And it really sent me into a place of like, oh my God, what do I do now? And I thought when I released Covered that it was for the sickness and the exposure that the world was feeling. And what I found out was that Covered was for me. God was reminding me that I don't need a covering in a man. He is the one that covers me. And because he covers me, I can totally be used. I'm totally valuable. I'm not to be discarded because someone discarded me doesn't mean that God has discarded me. And I think that so many women, especially in the church, because we grow up feeling like the ultimate thing is to be found by a man and to be caught, and to have that, have that wifely responsibility to be that woman of God.
Yeah.
That's covering your husband and praying for him and leading your family. And you can do all of those things still if you've gone through some kind of a trauma in relationship. And going through that, God really used that song, and he still is using that song to heal me. And I know that he's using it to heal others. So that's the song that means the most to me.
Wow. Awesome. I have enjoyed this conversation so much, and I definitely wish you all the success with this new EP, the next chapter indeed. So before we end everything, tell everybody how they can connect with you, how they can follow you on that good old social media, how they can also find your website to keep up with you and to be updated.
Yeah. So again, it's at Anisa Worships, ANISA, Worships with an S. That's on Instagram. That's on Facebook. And my website is anisafowler.com. Just my name, anisafowler.com. You can certainly stay connected with me there, and you'll find out everywhere that I'm going and everything that I'm doing. And you might even see babies. They're not babies though. 16, 14, and 8.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I have definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I hope everyone makes a point to go ahead and follow Anisa and learn more about her, and go to her YouTube channel and check out these songs. I am partial to You Rain. I really did it several times today. And again, we had a great conversation, and we touched on so many important things. Just as women, sometimes we do have to take a L. Sometimes we do have to get a no. We got to get that door to be shut. Sometimes we have to let somebody leave, in order to really know ourselves. And the important thing is, not to hold on to any false perceptions of being perfect. It's okay for something to not work out. It's okay to get that no. It's literally okay to fail. What you do remember is our worth is not wrapped up in a person, a relationship, even a dream sometimes that we may have that's not meant for us. So the best way to get up in the morning and keep your head held high is just sometimes to remember that it's all a part of the alignment. We all have a power over us that has an alignment for us. And we just got to remember to accept it, and we can be happy. Sometimes that no is a yes. It's leading you to that bigger yes. That is leading you to a huge win. Even Fantasia said it. Sometimes you got to lose to win again. Remember that, guys. And again, check out Anisa. Again, I'm partial to You Rain, but please go ahead and look out and get some information on Anisa, the next chapter. And I hope you all can just have some self-love and remember that you're worthy of that next chapter to turn that new page. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Q Chat. Be safe and make sure you go love yourself.